Hello and welcome to another episode of Earth911's Sustainability in Your Ear. And we've got a really interesting interview today with Space, the keyboard and guitar player for Never Not Nothing, or NNN, a band that is breaking out in the UK. Space, welcome to the show today. How are you?
Great. Thank you, Mitch. Yeah, doing well.
Well, hey, I've really been impressed with your music and its focus both on the environment, our climate crisis, and the support of Black Lives Matter. Can you tell us, first, I know your name, the band name is a little bit of a work in progress all the time, Never Not Nothing. How did you start to settle on that, and how does that represent your support of the Black Lives Matter movement?
Well, initially, the project was called Black Futures. And we became increasingly aware of that being a really positive phrase in the Black Lives Matter movement, and the emergence of Black Futures Month and all sorts of really great things to do with those two specific words together. And whilst we didn't want to be reductionists with language, it felt like we really shouldn't take any of the meaning away from those two words and let that be purely a part of that movement, not to dilute it in any shape or form. So Never Not Nothing had always been the band's essentially, I guess, a motto or a mantra or a call to arms or even an in-joke. And it kind of summed up what we were all about. It's the name of our first album. And so it was the most kind of logical place to go, and it really felt like it encapsulated what the music is about as well. And
so Never Not Nothing is sort of it's a statement, it's a demand that you're not going to take nothing. What's the positive expression of that what do you want?
Well, it's quite a funny phrase, isn't it? It's negatives. So it really is up to you to kind of imply a positive or negative application to the phrase. And so we always try and opt for the positive of that we are not nothing.
So you guys are a duo. Vibes, your partner, plays drums. You play keyboard and guitar. And I've been trying to figure out how to describe it, but it's like White Stripes meets Nine Inch Nails with a dash of Queens of the Stone Age thrown in. It's rough, it's raw, and it's great music to listen to. And you describe yourself as positive nihilists. What do you mean by that? It's a philosophy that denies the possibility of objective truth. And like you just said, you can put anything into the name. What are you trying to do to create this new meaning and ethos for sustainability through the expression of your name?
I think it kind of started as a bit of a thought project with the music. We wanted to kind of always view things from a cosmic scale. And that's kind of where positive nihilism comes from. Also, it's a kind of a blend of existentialism and nihilism, really. And so when we're looking down through space in this cosmic scale at our little blue dot, and all of the things that are going on the ground there, it just puts a completely different perspective on what's important, what's not important. And when you look at what happens on Earth on a cosmic scale, it's so vast, we know so little about it. It is completely inconsequential in regards of that as a scale. And then when we come back to our personal selves and we look out at the world, we see it in a different light. We see that we can impose our own choose to impose importance on what we want, and see the kind of systemic stuff, inventions of humans as just that,
Right. So basically, like the existentialists, it's a matter of putting meaning into your life and choosing that meaning. Why is sustainability the key?
Well, okay, I guess when we look back and get back down on the ground from outer space, what seems to be to us is the most kind of precious thing is how rare this planet is.
Yes.
How it sits as a tiny oasis in a vast desert of seemingly nothing, and how wild and amazing and lucky we are to be sentient beings on this kind of web of life. And and all these amazing ecosystems and things that we can experience and see and learn about. And that seems, preserving that seems like the most important thing.
So that provides some context. I just watched your latest video release, and you talk about creating empathy machines. So now I see where you're going, is that, essentially people need to wake up to one another and the planet.
Mm-hmm.
How do you see music and celebrity being combined to create that shared consciousness of our interdependence?
Well, I'm not sure about celebrity, but
well, you nevertheless have public influence.
Yeah, I would see it as almost storytelling in a way. Troubadours would do in the past, going and presenting ideas to other people, essentially, and telling stories. With our project, it's very much about imagining in a future, kind of looking forward beyond your own lifetime and imagining a future you would like to populate, and telling stories of that, and kind of getting a narrative out there that isn't always doom, doom, doom.
So what artists do you look to for inspiration?
Well, I mean, we're complete music nerds, so we're constantly listening. We work with a lot of artists as well, producing and developing other projects for people and doing film scores. So
right.
We do listen to everything from kind of long form music, like film scores. A favorite of ours at the moment is a guy called Colin Stetson. And then we listen to absolutely everything. I'm a bit obsessed with the Monks at the moment. Do you know the Monks?
Only in passing. I don't know them well.
Yeah, they were a really odd band from the 60s that were ex-servicemen, I think, American Army, that holed up in Hamburg, and made really kind of progressive music for the time, and it was really just a part of the club scene there.
Do you see the way that do you see the music that you perform today as being sort of analogous to the peace movement driven rock and roll of the late 60s and early 70s?
I'd say that we might be entering a new social movement, essentially, and that would correlate with that movement quite well. I'd say there is a need for optimism. There's a need for looking forward. There is a definite youth movement that is trying to affect change. And so I think there are parallels there. Yeah, of course.
It's interesting, though, because you've also described your music as party music for the end of the world, which doesn't sound hopeful. But on the other hand, it does, in the context of the positive nihilism you were talking about, give you the ability to step back and create a new focus.
Yeah, I mean, with everything we do, there is, I think, what you'd call a British wry sense of humor going on as well. But there is an end, potentially, as far as we know it, with our objective truths that we have at the moment, that will, of course, change. I think imagining an end is good. It kind of knocks you out of your kind of human egocentric existence.
Well, and it gives your story a meaning.
Yep.
And you begin to pursue it. So let me ask you another kind of influence question. One of the other variations on Never Not Nether is Never Not Heroes of the Multiverse, which is clearly a reference to cyberpunk. How does cyberpunk writing inform your music and how you see reshaping the world for sustainability?
Well, it's a movement in literature, isn't it, that looks at possible futures. And like Brave New World or Neuromancer, they essentially predicted the environment that we live in now with certain elements of our society. And we're kind of naturally dour. Well, I'm naturally dour. Vibes is maybe a little bit brighter. And so we have to work harder at pushing a positive message and having a positive imagination for the future we'd like to inhabit, and being able to see the edges of capitalism and the systems that we live within. So we use that cyberpunk and looking into the future, and not necessarily seeing it as so much of a dystopian or a utopian thing, just trying to imagine it in a more positive light, and also get rid of our existential dread at the same time.
Well, we could use more of that British wry sense of humor, because in the States we seem to have kind of lost our sense of humor entirely.
I like to call it the battle against the nuance truants.
So, you mentioned capitalism a moment ago, and you also are turning capitalism around in some ways. So you're donating part of your merchandise sales revenue to the UK's National Health Service and to supporting a music venue in the UK. Why is it important for a band to give back this way? And do you see that as setting an example for your fans?
Yeah, I think it really is important. I mean, the National Health Service really shouldn't feel like you need to donate money to the National Health Service, because it's supposed to be a government-funded entity. Mm-hmm. So in a way, that is a political statement that it is being underfunded at the moment. Other than that, giving back to kind of community projects and venues and other things in need, I think is really important. I think if you're going to go out there and talk about ethical capitalism, accountability and equality and liberty, then you've got to base your whole way of life around it. And so it would be slightly hypocritical of us not to find ways to give back and create an ecosystem that brings more diversity in the arts and supports the venues that allow that ecosystem to be alive, essentially.
That's interesting. So you do see sort of being part of the global economy includes an obligation not only to the communities that you come from, but the communities that you are living in and the planet it all resides on. Now, how do you express that in the choices of where you play? You've played a lot of Earth positive events, and you're going to be playing the 2021 Trees Festival, which has a plastic-free, locally focused food ethos. Are those kinds of experiences, where people gather in mass audiences, sort of the future of music's cultural influence?
I think so. All these events are under a lot more pressure now to be very much more eco-conscious as well. And it is really important to us. It's with playing music, touring and playing festivals, that there is a huge cost to the environment with these things and with these events. And you want to try and have as little impact as possible. So there's really great initiatives in kind of making festivals and gatherings a lot more green, looking at how we tour as musicians as well, and is there a smarter, better way to feed into local economies and do less travel. So we're hoping to try out some things, something we're calling slow touring at the moment, where we play smaller venues on tour, but we do residencies so that we have a bit more time in each place. There's less jumping around.
Right. It's interesting. So the slow touring and slow travel and a lot of things that we're embracing because of COVID are potentially really just what we were headed towards, and we're getting there faster, it seems like. Now, how do you identify where you want to play? Do you look at sustainability as one of the factors?
Yes. Well, we try to as much as possible. Often, if it's not our tour, we don't get a lot of choice. But as far as festivals and the ethos of festivals, of course, that is taken into account. And also we like to work with independent venues, independent promoters, like to work with smaller companies where possible, because it's generally better for the local economies and for everyone involved, really.
Well, in the video I watched, just released, you talk about being chased on your last tour by COVID. What was that like? How did you see the world changing in the venues you were playing as COVID came on?
Do you know what? It was, I think it's only in retrospect that it felt a little like we were being chased, but the shows were normal. They were sweaty. and packed and great, amazing exchanges of energy. But there was no lockdown or no outbreaks that had been publicized in any of the countries we're playing in. Though as we were kind of returning back through Europe on our way home, everything started to chase us home, essentially. And as we came off tour, that's when we went into a lockdown in England.
So do you have plans to play in the United States soon?
We would love to, yeah. Yeah.
Well, we'd love to have you. Maybe we could figure out a way to get you over here.
I'm sure we will definitely be coming and touring the States and interacting over there. Definitely. How is the mood at your end?
Well, we are. I think we're all living through a form of shell shock. It doesn't happen because of loud explosions. We actually look for loud noise to distract us from what's going on. We've inverted the Spanish flu and World War I, and we're coming out of it with a new perspective.
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
So, go ahead.
What it does to your thought process and general society's ideas of what the future might look like when something like a pandemic shakes you out of your comfort zone.
Well, and I think that's, going back to the existentialists, one of the things that I've been doing in the pandemic is reading a lot of Camus, who was an existentialist with a very humane perspective, and one I think that echoes with what you're talking about. So what would you leave as a message to people listening right now about your music and what you're seeing in terms of the hope for the future? Can we look past where we are now to a new world?
Oh, definitely. It's harder to err on the side of optimism, but I would always say to do that. And I think we should dream the future we wish to populate and then build it, essentially.
Well, Space, this is, I think, a great place to stop. I'm going to encourage everybody to check out Never Not Never. Excuse me. Backing up here, Doug. 3, 2, 1. Well, Space, I think that's a very fitting place to end our conversation right now. But folks, check out Never Not Nothing. You can find them on YouTube. They've got some great music videos. You'll enjoy the music. Download their music on iTunes or on Amazon and enjoy. Dig in and listen. This is Earth911, Sustainability in Your Ear. I'm Mitch Ratcliffe, your host. We'll be back with another innovator interview soon. And in the meantime, take care of yourself, take care of one another, and take care of the planet.